Okay. Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Healing Sundays with Itrambi Natural Healing. I am going to be your host, Umisi Wikaba, and we will have a very exciting guest today, Wanga Hanyani, where we will be discussing today wound healing. So, as you all know, we have entered into the season of Upset. That was on the 23rd of March, and from here on, we will just be doing the two next sessions in the season will be about divine feminine, the issues that affect us, and all things related to Osset and how we channel the energy. So thank you so much for joining us. Today, I will open up the sacred space by just having a quick breathing exercise where we can just get in touch and reconnect with ourselves and invite our ancestors in for this beautiful conversation. I will then begin. So we just want to sit comfortably. If you're laying down, if you're sitting, if you're standing while you're listening to this, either way, it's all good. We just want to make sure that you're up straight or laying straight. And we're just going to take 3 deep breaths. So on the inhale, we are going to extend our tummy. On the exhale, you contract your stomach. So if you just want to place your hands on your abdomen, on your tummy, so that you can feel what your tummy is doing. So in your inhale, you want to feel it go out. And as you exhale, you want to feel it go in. So let us begin. A deep inhale. And then exhale. You want to inhale. Exhale, and let go all of the weak stress with your exhale. And you want to inhale. So you want to have an inhale and then exhale. Our final inhale, we're going to do 4. Let's go. Inhale. Just letting in your energy, letting in your ancestors, your guides, the divine. And exhale, letting go of everything else. And thank you. Okay. So now that we are all relaxed and we are all in the space, we will begin okay, sorry, I'm just changing my views. Okay, we'll begin our discussion. And I just want to greet everybody that is in our Zoom chat and with us. Thank you all for joining. And I'd like us to go through the pledge and then begin our discussion. So if we can all recite the pledge, please can you unmute yourself, and you can go just repeat after me. Our healers pledge. Okay. Singabelapi, we are healers.
Singabelapi, we are healers.
We owe our gifts to nature, our ancestors, and our creators.
We owe our gifts to nature, our ancestors, and our creators.
We live by the principles of Ma'at, Honu, Ubuntu.
We live by the principles of Ma'at, Honu, and Ubuntu.
We will approach each other with respect, honesty, and compassion.
We will approach each other with respect, honesty, and compassion.
We will offer our advice, recommendations, and ideas with trust.
We will offer our advice, prescriptions, and ideas with trust.
We will neither insult, dishonor, nor abuse one another.
We will neither insult, dishonor, nor abuse one another.
We will share, practice, promote, and raise awareness about natural healing.
We will share, practice, promote, and raise awareness about natural healing.
Healthy lifestyles and well-being.
Healthy lifestyles and well-being.
We will refrain from posting negative information.
We will refrain from posting negative information.
We will refrain from posting irrelevant information and falsehoods.
We will refrain from posting irrelevant information and falsehoods.
Singabelaphi, we are healers.
Singabelaphi, we are healers.
Our gifts are a gift to humanity and nature.
Our gifts are a gift to humanity and nature.
We will give back to nature what it has abundantly given us.
We'll give back to nature what it has abundantly given us.
Thank you. So we will just get the conversation started, and just as a disclaimer to say that all the advice that we'll be sharing today is just general advice. It is not to be taken as any medical advice, and if you need to check, please check with your doctor before you implement anything. And on that note, let us begin. Wanga, I'd like you to introduce yourself and we can keep chatting.
Hello, everybody. My name is Wanga Pajanga Nantambwe Hanyani, but Wanga Hanyani for short. I'm a woman wellness practitioner, and my work is solely about working with women, healing their wounds and healing their bodies naturally.
Okay, totally love that. Totally love that. So when we talk about womb healing, what is womb healing?
Womb healing can be in different forms, but in the most basic form, it's more about healing, the general lady problems that women may have, whether it's, period problems or fertility issues, the more physical stuff. But it's also healing the essence of you. There is, we are the only beings that have a womb, and it's our essence, it's our core. It's not just about healing the physical issues that you may be having, but it's also healing and getting back into alignment with yourself and understanding, putting labels aside of how we may choose to identify and sexual orientation, but understanding that what we carry in our core is a portal. It's something that brings from the spiritual into the physical. It's something that manifests the unseen and brings it into the seen, the tangible form that all other life can see it. And it's bringing that part of you back into alignment, because there has been a major assault on our womb health. And I think that has thrown women way off our path as healers, as keepers of wisdom and knowledge. So it's also the healing of generations. If there's womb trauma, a history of womb trauma in your family, healing your womb. I've seen this somewhere that says, when you heal yourself, you heal the woman who came before you and those that will come after you. And so it's a healing of generations. It's not just, I have fibroids and I'm healing myself. But if there's that history of trauma, however it's manifested in your life, you're also now healing that trauma and rewriting the legacy of health into the families that you will create going forward.
I absolutely love how you broke that down. And I think what I love is that you gave us the full picture of it being a portal, and also about connecting it also to the people who came before us. Because as they said, you were already there in your grandmother's womb. So, it's about remembering that you're not in this isolation and you're not just by yourself. So
Exactly.
sorry, yes?
I was saying exactly when my grandmother was pregnant with my mother, I was there as well within my mother. So whatever traumas my grandmother experienced, those have been carried down. And if they're not addressed and dealt with, then I'm carrying on that trauma in whatever shape or form it may manifest in my lifespan. We are made in the image of our creator in whatever capacity we may understand that. But if we just look at it in the physical sense, I was made in the image of my creator. My creator is my mother. So she could have only passed down what she is made of. So if she's made of bad experiences, a whole lot of trauma, I can only have inherited that. She couldn't have given me what she's not, or made me out of something she's not. So it's deeper than just healing the physical things. It's understanding where you're coming from.
So with that said, then how does one know that they need to do healing? I mean, now that you've brought in such a depth, I feel like everybody needs it. But what are the key aspects that you can look out for to say, oh, okay, this is what I need to do?
So like I first mentioned, obviously the most obvious things, if you have period problems, there's a lot of things that women have come to think is normal because it's so common. But just because it's common doesn't make it normal, and it should never be normalized. And we see this even with the way women are being taken care of in hospitals and in healthcare in general. But if you have heavy periods, if you don't get a period, if you're not ovulating, if you're having just, general menstrual cycle problems, if you're having fertility issues, if you bleed too long, if you bleed too short, all those things are a sign, or your womb is sending you an SOS, essentially, that there's something that is not in alignment. There is dis-ease within your body and you need to address it. So it's really just the things that you experience that are not normal. Those are signs and symptoms that there is misalignment and dis-ease going on with you. And if you have had an experience with sexual abuse, you need to heal your womb, because your sacred space, your portal was, it was invaded without your consent. And that is a traumatic experience, because that is not how it's meant to be used. That is not meant how it's meant to be honored. Even if you've been in a relationship where there was no sexual abuse, but there was maybe mental abuse or physical abuse or emotional, psychological abuse, where you were told you're not good enough, you're not woman enough, you're not girly enough, you're not feminine, or you're awkward looking, all those things play a role in how you will manifest yourself and how your womb will react. A good example of this is polycystic ovarian syndrome, that there's a huge correlation with women who have PCOS and a history of being verbally abused, probably emotional abuse, possibly even sexual abuse, but more it's a psychological thing. Of how they've been told you're not good enough, you're not womanly, or you're not feminine enough. And that settles into their womb. The womb carries all that energy and says, you know what? I'm not going to carry this whole process through, because essentially the growth of cysts is just eggs that never ovulated, that were never released. And psychologically, you may have been abused, but your womb has taken that on and said, I cannot, because I've been told and conditioned that I'm not woman enough, I'm not worthy, then I will not release this egg, because then it doesn't go in line with what I've been conditioned to believe about myself, and that egg is not released. The second thing that most women who have PCOS will have is high testosterone. Testosterone is an androgen hormone that is related with male characteristics, right? That's what makes men more manly than we do. So high testosterone is essentially saying, agreeing that yes, you're not womanly enough, so let's increase testosterone output in you to take you away from identifying as feminine, as womanly, as beautiful, or however you need to feel as a woman. So PCOS is one of those classical examples where it's not just a physical problem, but it's also psycho-emotional and possibly spiritual, an assault in those areas as well. And even if you've been cheated on, and it's different if it's a polygamous relationship or a marriage where there is consent and you are involved in the bringing in of a third party, but where you have been cheated on in a relationship and there was no consent to that, then because sex is a very spiritual act as well. Now you are bringing in different energies that you have not consented to. You have not allowed this energy in your space, but it has been imposed on you. So even then, you may need to do womb healing. And a classic example of this is when it manifests physically is vaginismus, where literally the muscles of the vagina close because you do not want to allow this person who has cheated on you to penetrate you. So the womb takes on that energy. Whatever we may experience emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, the womb carries that energy because it wants to protect the portal.
Wow. It's actually just like the more that I'm listening to you, I'm just like, it's so much deeper than what we hear. And I love how you're bringing the psychological and spiritual elements into it, because I think we've always just left the womb to be a physical entity outside of ourselves. And it's just always, my doctor, my gynae, must tell me about myself. But now it's actually so many things. And I think that's also, you answered very nicely the next question that I wanted to ask about. Why are so many women having womb issues? But I mean, the way that you have just put it so nicely, that there's so many things that are affecting us. And there's so many things that we need to be aware of and in touch with. And that's why we are feeling unsettled or misaligned. It's not just painful periods only.
Yeah. And there's two more points that I actually wanted to add to that because I think I forgot them. If you've experienced child loss, you do need to focus on healing your womb again. This could have been a child that, you did give birth to and they did live a while and then you lost that child. Because I know for a fact that I've experienced this when I'm working with some women that since they lost their children, they've started having period problems or just womb conditions that have developed over time from having lost their child. And it's just a reminder of that connection that you may not physically be connected to the child you birthed anymore, but there is still that connection that is beyond the physical, in the unseen. I know for a fact, if one of us, me or my sisters, is not okay, my mother has womb issues and she'll call and she'll say, I'm having pain, is everybody okay? Because of that deep connection that goes beyond the physical. If you've had miscarriages, if you've had stillbirths, if you've had an abortion, you need to do a form of womb healing. Because like I said, the process of birth itself is bringing something into from the unseen into the physical, into the tangible. And that process was disturbed through whether it's miscarriage, abortion, or stillbirth. That process was disturbed. And now you need to realign those energies because something was abruptly stopped. Especially, I think, if where there was a miscarriage, for example, I know I had a miscarriage some years ago, and following years, I would have pain at the time that I lost the baby because my womb carried that trauma. And that's when I realized I need to do a certain form of healing, even in that regard as well. Every cell in your body carries memory, and it's a form of self-preservation that the next time it feels it is threatened or in a situation where it felt unsafe the previous time, it will keep and retain that memory as a way to preserve you. And it's the same thing when you experience child loss, that the body says, the womb says, oh, I know I've been here, so let me preserve myself. So this is even why we may see recurrent miscarriages in women at the same time as previous pregnancies, maybe keep miscarrying at 8 weeks. It may not even be a physical problem. It may just be cell memory that has to be rewired or reconfigured. And then lastly, the inherited trauma that we talked about, that if you have a history of, trauma in your family, you need to focus and heal your womb
Mm. And then just speaking about, I know that you've touched on PCOS, just hormonal imbalance. Can you also speak about something that seems to be starting to rise a lot in melanated women is the removal of the womb. So what's the medical term?
Say that again. I lost you for a second.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I wanted to say that I just wanted you, since you've already touched on hormonal imbalance and PCOS and trauma and hereditary trauma, can you also touch on and just speak about what we are seeing happen or rise in melanated women having to have their wombs removed?
Okay, so that's hysterectomies when they remove the womb. And I think it's a complete assault. Let me speak more on the physical side and not stir up a storm when it comes to the spiritual aspect or the ethics of it as to, women's healthcare. Having a hysterectomy or having any part of you removed, unless it's life-threatening, is an assault to the body, because again, you're removing something that is naturally supposed to be there and you're taking the whole body out of alignment, out of proper flow. Now, why we're seeing this in Black women more is that Black women tend to experience most of these womb problems like fibroids, like adenomyosis, and all sorts of cancers as well. We tend to experience that more than women of other races. And we also happen to be on the tail end of getting the best healthcare. So even if we range the women in the different races, Black women get the least care. Black women are most likely to die under childbirth than any other woman of any race. We are most likely to lose our uterus than any other woman of any race. This is because, back to healthcare, for example, let me give my example. So years ago, again, they diagnosed that I had fibroids. And while I was in the hospital, the doctor came in and said, there's fibroids and I'm going to put you on the pill. I said, why would I go on the pill when we know that fibroids are fed by estrogen, and the pill, the hormonal contraceptive pill, will be doing just that, feeding this fibroid. And this doctor, it was a private hospital, let me just say that, and the private hospital does not have doctors, but they bring doctors in. So each doctor comes in to see their own patients. So there's a lot of financial incentive towards that. The doctor's response to me was, I've been a doctor longer than you've been alive. And he kept me for that just by questioning what I thought was not the right treatment for me, just by questioning what he had recommended, kept me in the hospital for another night when I was meant to be discharged. There's a huge financial incentive for women to have hysterectomies. Because, for example, let's say I had taken that pill. 6-8 weeks later, those fibroids would have grown immensely. Then the next session or the next time I see that doctor, the next remedy of like, well, they're too big now and they're giving you problems, so let's take you for surgery. Then they go in for surgery and they say, oh, there's been heavy bleeding, and so we had to remove uterus. And that's it. So it's, unfortunately, I'm not knocking medical practice or anything, but I'm calling it for what it is, that at times it's more about the financial incentive than the actual health ethics of it. And a lot of women don't have a voice. A lot of women are not able and are not heard by their doctors. And this is why women are losing their wombs, women are losing their thyroids and dealing with autoimmune disease that is never treated. So that would be the long short of it, that it's about just being disregarded and not really being listened to when we have, and poor education of the doctors as well. I don't think that in this day and age, doctors are being competently taught about the human body in a holistic fashion as well. We have doctors and everybody's in their corner as a specialist, and there's nothing wrong with specialists. We need them at times, but when treating a person, it has to be holistic. It has to be holistic. And if you don't mind, I would like to actually give an example of a young lady, which it breaks my heart every time I talk about this. She's a very young lady. I think she was 27 when I first met her, and she had had 7 miscarriages. She was on antidepressants. She had hypothyroidism, and her thyroid was then removed. She had irritable bowel syndrome, and then she had horrible, horrible, horrible acne from right from her forehead to here. It was painful, it was big, it was scarring, and it affected her, her self-confidence. When she gave me all her, her medical reports and we had a chat, I asked her, were you being treated by the same doctor? She said, no, I was seeing a specialist for each thing. I said, well, I hate to say it, but this was where the problem is, that everybody's stuck in the corner and never talk to the other person. Because if they had taken all her symptoms into context, and as women, they need to take all symptoms into context. A headache is not just a headache for us sometimes. Fatigue is not just fatigue for us sometimes. Recurrent miscarriages is not just a mishap. Sometimes it leads to other things. And this young lady, if they had taken a step back and looked at a whole picture, they'd have realized that, well, if she's having hypothyroidism, she is going to have womb issues. She's at high risk of having miscarriages. So if it was an autoimmune disease or hypothyroid, if they had taken care of that, it's likely they could have saved her babies. If she's on antidepressants, of course she's on antidepressants because she has hypothyroidism, autoimmune hypothyroidism, which is depression is one of the main things that people will get when they have hypothyroidism. Irritable bowel syndrome, of course, because her thyroid is in trouble and her thyroid is part of, her digestive process is partly due to thyroid function. If thyroid function is not working properly, digestive issues will not be going very well. And because antidepressants, we know that also affect the mental health as well. So there's a relay going back and forth where things are not in alignment. But everybody was treating her in their own corner and only causing problems, more problems for her in the end, some which are irreversible.
No,
So,
no, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing someone that you know. I think it's so important that we start sharing these stories because we are in isolation with what we are going through. So we keep on telling ourselves, oh, I bleed for 7 days, it's normal. And you don't ever speak to anybody about it. We don't share, we don't share it with anybody. So we just keep on thinking how your body is functioning is normal because you will Google and you'll get all of these things. And it kind of feels like, oh, okay. And we don't really have open conversation to say, this is what's happening with me. Is it normal? And our doctors are telling us it is, or they're not even giving us proper and in-depth explanations to what is happening. So we're just moving from pillar to post, and there's even more misalignment. And I mean, even the story that you just shared about being on antidepressants, I only came to find out later, being on antidepressants actually messes up your gut. Your hormones are produced in your gut. So if your gut is unstable, so this is like a rolling effect of trying to fix one thing, but the way you're trying to fix one thing is actually affecting you actually healing and prolonging you healing. And we don't hear about that. And I mean, personally, I'll share, I had a very messy recovery when I tried to get off the contraceptive, and everything just fell apart. And things like contraceptive affecting your liver, nobody tells you that. Nobody tells you it's going to affect. Yes, nobody tells you it's going to affect your mood. That's why you're going to feel depressed and you're going to think you have depression and anxiety, but you actually don't. So there's so many things that we don't ask the questions. And this is also another thing that I want to put out there is we are not saying it's all on the doctors because, they know what they know, and what the medical field puts you through is only so much, and it puts them through writing scripts. But what we are saying is that we also have a responsibility as patients to also, do the work. Where I feel that it gets a little bit unethical is a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, even 19, that person is not going to do the research, So we need the medical field to also meet us a little bit higher when it comes to minors. Anything under 21, they are not going to do the research. They don't
No,
have the
they're not.
mental capacity of that in order to have, to know that, okay, I've got to question things. So doctors also need to be a bit more ethical and prudent and not just saying, oh, get on the pill because you've got acne, you've got painful periods,
Yes.
and all sorts of things that they put you on, instead of actually saying, what is wrong? Because more often than not, you're in a bad relationship, you are not eating well, you have too much stress. There's just a whole lot of things. You've just lost maybe a family member, because even grief presents itself in a different, like in a different way in our bodies. We hold on to so much. So we always need to be mindful about what's going on and checking in. I would like
Yeah.
to.
If you don't mind.
Yes,
I
yes, yes.
like
Before
what
I open up to questions, let's just get your thoughts on that.
I think it's very important. And like I said earlier, that I would touch on later, the assault on women's health. I'm honestly, and I say this, like I said, with all respect to the medical field, if nothing else, my best friend is a doctor, but I do call her out on it. I do call her out and say, you guys need to do better. But at the same time, we also need to call out the health policies. We need to call out the government systems that have been put in place. Because if anything, let's use COVID as an example. It is shown that they are seriously lacking. There's a serious disconnect with our indigenous knowledge and Western methods of treatment. Because I know I've worked with of people who have completely recovered from COVID without using any medication from the hospital. And I know others who've used both. And I know others who haven't used any, but all the roads have led to healing. And this is why I have a lot of respect even for traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, because they have really made sure to integrate Western medications and Western methods of healing with their own indigenous systems. And I think when it comes to healthcare, for women's healthcare, this is a move that we need to make. If nothing else, if no one else but women's healthcare, we need to do this. Because like what you're saying, that they're young girls who like, I know something's wrong, but they're not really going to sit down and, read and, research about what's going on, because at that age, truthfully, you have other priorities, right? You're more interested in other things. And this is where I'm talking about the indigenous knowledge and its systems and rituals or things that were done in our cultures gone past. Where I come from, the little part of Africa that I come from, Malawi, we have a rites of passage, which is called Jinamwari. And this is a rite of passage for young girls. Right now, it's only done at one stage, at puberty, and unfortunately it has been highly sexualized. But from what I've realized and learned from the Wagogo and everyone of the older generations is that these were actually done at different stages. There were about 3, 4, 5 stages, if I'm not mistaken, where women and young girls were taken through rites of passage. So at puberty, as a young girl, you are now told and sat down and, by the, what we call Anang Kungwi, which is the women of the community, the older, the matriarchs, essentially the keepers of the wisdom and knowledge, the healers. They will teach and walk these young girls and say, this is a stage that you're coming into. This is the power that you're walking into. This is how you carry yourself. This is how you look after yourself. If you recognize any of these problems, this is maybe the herb that you need to take. See this person. This is what you need to look after yourself and bring your body back into health, right? So young girls already were aware what they're walking into. At most these days, maybe they'll have a period party, but a lot of young girls going into puberty have no idea what a period really is or what it does or what it means. Yes, it's something that you might get every month, but they don't understand that they have just reached a new level of power, of awareness, of alignment, and have been recognized by nature as somebody who now portal is active and is able to now carry on and rewrite parts of history. Puberty is such an important stage for young girls to be understanding what they're walking into. And then there would also be other stages of when she's going into adulthood. And I think Zulus do this. I'm not sure of other cultures. But I think about 18 or so where she's now going into a young woman where, they're taught like, now you're going to have suitors, this is how you carry yourself, but they're told about everything of that age. And then also as they go into marriage, childbirth, and even the weeks after childbirth, all those were rites of passage, and they were guided and taught how to carry the bodies, how to heal whatever they may feel is out of alignment, and so much. But all of that has been lost with what we may now deem as civilization. So these are things that I think government bodies and, indigenous bodies that are carrying on systems and carrying on, practices need to bring back into the forefront, because it can save so many young girls. It can heal so many women who don't have to go through all the things that we are being assaulted with in medical practice. And even research, a lot of the medication that we are given, a lot of the therapies that women undergo, we have to remember the history that most of this research was done on men. And the intentions were right, because they said, women of a childbearing age, their hormones are largely at play, and we cannot afford to start messing with that because we don't know the side effects later on in life. They started to see this, this was not something to mess with. And something as simple as intermittent fasting, if I do intermittent fasting and maybe Nkulumen does intermittent fasting, he can lose weight just like that, but I won't lose weight just like, if anything, I'll probably gain all that weight back and more once we come off it, because our bodies are so different. But the research has been, thrown over as a blanket for everybody and say, well, it works for everybody. And which is not just on. So even with research and everything with women's healthcare, we need to step it up, because it's dismal and it's largely lacking.
And I mean, just further on that, you are so correct in terms of there's so many blanket statements that have been prescribed, and that you will Google and you'll be like, okay, just do this. I also personally feel intermittent fasting puts me in a funk. I need to wake up. I need to eat within an hour of waking up. That's what works for my body. And I've had to figure it out. And I think also what we do as women, we also throw ourselves off by trying so many different things, because you on this for 3 months, then another 3 months, we've just really assaulted our body so much by pushing onto it, but never saying, okay, stop everything. What do you want? What do you feel like eating? What do you feel like drinking right now? But we're always doing the things where we think we're doing the right thing. So it just becomes too much. I'd like to open it up for questions.
Okay, can I just make one more comment?
Yes.
The thing of us looking for solutions everywhere, that's because I feel that our innate wisdom and knowledge as women, because we were the wisdom keepers, we were the knowledge keepers, we were the healers of our communities, that innate wisdom has been shut down and has been numbed by the way we have been treated in the medical system. Time and time again, I'll have a woman say, well, I wasn't feeling well. This is what I've been feeling for a really long time. I went to the doctor, he did tests and he said, everything came back normal. And then, no, he said everything came back normal. But I said, but you're not feeling well. Yes. But he said everything came back normal. He said, yes. So we're, subconsciously we're told it's in our head. It's just in our mind. We're over emotional, or we feel too much pain. We're over dramatic, but it's not. And never ignore how you feel. You live in your body every single moment. Test results are very important, but those are taken in one context and one frame of time. But if you're feeling like this all the time, that's not something to ignore, regardless of what the blood tests say. You need to follow up why you're looking for that. And this is why we need to help women, guide them and say, this is where you need to look at. And that's why I take a lot of time when I'm working with women to teach, because you need to know why it's happening. And then you're able to clearly see the path to healing. But going around back and forth, it takes us nowhere at the end of the day.
No, definitely. Let's open up to questions, and I'd like to speak more about the rites of passage, because I'm very passionate about that. Yeah, we'll get into it. So I just want to open up to any questions you might have in our participants. Anybody have a question? And we can get Wanga to answer it because she knows so much. Okay, we've got a raised hand. Okay, yes, no wonder you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, ladies.
Hello.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Thank you for a great session this morning. Unfortunately, I was like getting a bit cut off, so I look forward to watching like the recording. So I hope I'm not going to ask anything that you've covered, but I'm glad that this is the time that, you know, I have to ask this question. So basically, we obviously know that there's like much more like, what's the word that I'm looking for when they cut the cesareans? There's a lot more C-sections. And we obviously know like how that has so many like after effects. But like, is it possible from like, you know, the African birthing perspective to have a natural birth after a C-section, like 5+ years after you've had the Caesar? So, yeah, like what? Yeah, I just want to understand more about that because I still, like you were saying, had been assaulted, and even in my research and in my finding, I'm still not necessarily understanding how I can move past that decision that was made in naivety, and now I'm grown, and now I'm like, okay, how do I do better? Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Do I answer that now?
You can, okay, we've got another question. So answer Nwanda, and then we'll lead on to the next question from Udit.
Okay, I'm really glad you brought up the issue of cesareans because it was in my notes as well. I had come across one of the stats that I look at, and it was, I think, last year or 2 years ago, but I forgot to check it actually. But the last time I checked, and this was stats from 2013, please don't quote me on the numbers exactly, but I know that 90% of women who visit private hospitals are recommended a cesarean, and about 80 to 83%, I think, go through with it. Not because it's a life or death situation, but there's medical and financial incentives to it. And can you have kids post cesarean and still have a natural birth? Absolutely. But you need to make sure that you have healed that womb, that you have toned and strengthened that womb, and that you're not having issues like high blood pressure. If there's issues of anxiety, you need to be able to start to learn to trust your body, that your body can do the thing that it was actually designed to do naturally. Because there's also a thing that, you know, we kind of feel like if I don't have a baby in the hospital, it's never gonna work. And just yesterday, I saw it. So it was a very disturbing video, but of talking about in Nigeria, I think some mad woman had a baby by the roadside. But she was smart enough, even if they call her mad, but her innate wisdom and instinct kicked in because she laid out her clothes on the roadside. She knelt, gave birth to that baby, wrapped that baby up, and put on her underwear, gathered her the placenta and everything together just fine. We know this. She knew in what position to get into to give birth. She knew all these things because it's within us. But we have been taught to distrust our bodies and distrust what they're capable of. You can definitely have kids post cesarean. You just need to make sure that you've done the healing work. You've, you know, regathered your own trust, but also worked on the woman's strength in it. And it's definitely possible.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have a question from Titi. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello, ladies. Good morning.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. You spoke earlier about fibroids, and unfortunately, I was trying to get the kids out of the house. So can I just ask you to please just run through that again, because I think it's a problem or it's an issue that most women go through, and we don't know how it affects us and how we can either heal ourselves or how best we can deal with the situation of fibroids.
Okay.
Thank you.
So with fibroids, I say this, if you've ever come across me, I say, very rarely do we go to bed and wake up with a problem like fibroids. You don't go to sleep and wake up with fibroids. You don't go to sleep and wake up with ovarian cysts. This is something that has been happening in the shadows over time. And your body has been sending little signals like, hey, something's not okay here, have a look. But because we've been numbed again from our instinct, we don't pick up on those signs. So with fibroids in particular, it's a symptom of estrogen dominance, so having excess estrogen circulating in your body, and also possibly low progesterone. If you have extended periods where you're bleeding more than 7 days, then this is now where you can tell that there is also low progesterone. But with fibroids alone, it's an issue of having estrogen dominance. So that's the type of hormone imbalance that you would have to start addressing, lowering estrogen. This means looking after your liver. This means reducing inflammation in your body. This means balancing your blood sugar to make sure, because all those play a role in estrogen production or suppression. And then also looking into your lifestyle and diet and say, what are the things that are bringing estrogen, excess estrogen, xenoestrogen, so foreign or outside sources of estrogen into your body. This can be chemicals that you're using on your body, on your skin. This can be dairy, meat, plastic bottle use. All those contain forms of xenoestrogens because they're, especially like meats and stuff, they're not organic. And toxins tend to settle in the fats, even in our fat and in the fat of animals. So when it's settled in there, we accumulate it through eating it, and then we're accumulating all those antibiotics, all those medications, all those toxins that those animals have been given or have picked up from grazing in polluted areas. So going back into your diet and lifestyle, you cannot balance your hormones if you don't change your diet or if you don't improve your diet. If anybody has told you otherwise, they sold you a lie. You have to look at your diet and your lifestyle and then add the herbs and then add, whether it's the yoni steaming and all those other practices. But first and foremost, you have to look at what is causing the excess estrogen in your body and work on that first. I hope that answers it.
Thank you very much. It answers, and I think I can relate. You actually you mentioned things about dairy and about the plant, the meats that we're eating, and I think there's a perfect example of that. But I won't go into it right now. Thank
and
you.
Also look at herbs like Vitex, chasteberry. That's a really good herb that helps to regulate all hormones in the body. Well, most hormones. So definitely the herbal therapies are very important as well to just kind of kickstart the healing process.
Great. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Okay. Do we have another question from anybody before we now get into what everybody's waiting for and wanting to ask? Wanga, how do I start this monstrous task of healing? Because and the reality of it is that I only started learning in my 30s that I actually needed to concentrate on womb healing. We are not taught that. Yes, we have life orientation in school telling us about periods, but we don't take it really serious or understand what it means. So yes, what I want to say to people before we actually get into what are the tools, what are the ways that you can now get into womb healing, is that don't be gentle with yourself, because you are catching up to 30 plus, 20 plus years of where you did not go through the proper steps. So now you are starting back at where you were supposed to be at, what the menstrual age is 12, 13 now. So all of those years that you have now missed out on doing the proper steps and being in tune, you are catching up on that. So it's not late. There's a lot that needs to be done, but you can do it. And your womb is strong enough, your body is strong enough to actually do it. It's amazing how much difference you are going to feel, but just implementing small things. Okay, I think we have a question. We'll get into that question once we actually, so there's no other questions. Let me just have a quick check. Okay. Hi, Lindiwe. We have somebody who's just popping in saying hi. Okay, so let's get into it. How do I start healing, Wanga?
Good question. Okay, so first and foremost, let me say this. There is no blanket approach to healing. This is, again, I'll come for the medical system. This is why we have problems, because everybody is being treated with the same protocol, the same medication, but we're all different. And we need to be looked at within context of our personal symptoms, which is something that is very lacking when it comes to especially women's care, right? If, for example, I'll give an example of, if I go to the hospital and I haven't seen my period in 3 months, and I tell the doctor, hey, I haven't seen my period in 3 months. And then the lady next to me says, I have my period every month, but I bleed and I have clots and it's very heavy and it's very painful. And then the lady next to her says, I get it, but sometimes I spot, sometimes I bleed heavily, and then sometimes it's missing. I can almost bet that I will get the pill, she will get the pill, and she will also get the pill. But the reason I'm having my symptoms of absent period is a very different hormonal condition to why she's having heavy periods, and is different to why she's having spotting in the middle of a cycle when she shouldn't be bleeding. We can't all be treated the same. There may be some milestones and some pointers that we might need to all cover, but we can't all be treated the same throughout. So this is why it's important to understand why you are having that problem. And that's why I take a lot of time to teach on that. Why do you have this particular issue? So that you're able to have a clear path to healing, but also treat the root cause of the problem you are having. Now, if all you have is a hammer, every problem you see will be a nail, right? So come back and say, okay, these are my symptoms. Put all your symptoms together and start to look and say, what is the common factor? What is really going on here? And you're able to do that. There's lots of information on the internet. Of course, you need to sift through it and be able to look and understand what's going on. But now, how do you do that? For example, we know that input equals output. If you eat like nonsense, you can't expect pristine health. If you put in rocks, you can't expect diamonds. This is why I said the first thing you have to look at is your diet. Look at what are the triggers. Is sugar the problem? Is dairy the problem? Is meat the problem? Is gluten the problem? For example, women who have thyroid issues really should kind of limit gluten from their diet. And I talk about this, that if you feel you don't feel well at certain times when you eat something, start to take note of it. Journaling is one of the easiest ways for you to start to get to know your body, become more self-aware, and understand what may be your triggers and what may be happening. So whenever you feel an uncomfortable symptom or uncomfortable experience, just take a note and just briefly describe what is happening in that time. Was it something that you saw? Was it something that you just stressed you out? Was it the week before your period? Did you experience maybe loss at that particular time 2-3 years ago? Did you give birth at that time, particularly 2-3 years ago? Start to notice what is going in and around the time when you're feeling this discomfort. Right? And then be able to track, because that will kind of tell you like, oh, whenever I feel this, this is what I've eaten, or this is what I've drank, or this is the medication that I've taken, or maybe this is the season that I start to feel more sick. Then you're able to kind of see where the problems is lying. Herbs are fantastic at healing and helping to just jumpstart that healing journey. They help to complement. Everything else I'm going to talk about after diet should be used as a complement to fixing diet and lifestyle. This is the first and most important thing that you need to do. Then we go into herbs. Again, if someone says, oh, what herbs can I take for fibroids? I would probably have much more money and be much more busier if I just said, oh, you've got fibroids, take this. Oh, you've got endometriosis, take this. But I cannot do that because I need you to understand why it's happening. And also I need to understand the context in which you are experiencing this. For example, if if I know red clover, for example, is a herb that is used to help balance hormones. If you have a history of cancer in your family or a history of lymphatic problems, I may not be able to give you red clover to help balance your hormones, but I can give you chaste tree. If you have a history of ovarian cancer in your family, Tribulus is excellent for healing any ovarian problems like cysts and a lack of ovulation. But if there's ovarian cancer in your family, I might not be able to do that. Or if you're on any hormonal contraceptive, I cannot give you anything that will directly help to your hormones as well as a herb, or would have to firstly ease you out of coming out of a hormonal contraceptive or hormonal medication, and then put you on herbs that help to balance hormones. So don't just hear that, oh, this herb helps to help balance, because it depends what it's doing in your body. Red clover will help with low estrogen and might make your fibroids worse, even though it is for hormone balancing. But what type of hormone balance do you have is the first and most important thing for you to understand. And then if it is, for example, yoni steaming versus yoni soaking, it's called a sitz bath, but I just called yoni soaking or a hip bath. Not everybody can do yoni steaming. It's an extremely effective way of healing your womb and getting rid of blockages, healing from cesareans, dissolving fibroids and all of that, and cysts as well. It's very, very effective for that, but not everybody can do it. And the context is always important. So first you get to know your body, what's going on, and then you're able to find what herbs you can use and what you can't use, or when you will be able to start using it. Yoga. Yoga is one of my favorite things, especially when it comes to period issues. Whether it's bringing back a period, I have used this very successfully, bringing back periods and helping to ease a heavy period. Yoga is one of my favorite things to incorporate in a healing protocol when I'm working one-on-one with a woman, because one, it's learning to trust your body again, coming into a deep, intimate relationship with your body again, and then also learning to start healing your womb. Yoga can be used in so many healing ways as well for the womb, especially. And then I've talked about yoni steaming, etc. And then trauma healing is very important, like I talked about earlier. And I think those are good starting points.
Okay. Yes. I think, yes, that's a very good one and good starting point. I liked when you also touched on the herbs that we need to be mindful. So what happens if, okay, I know red raspberry leaf is also quite good if you mix it with red clover or just alone. So how do you actually know what's going to be best for you? And where can you get someone to help you to figure out what is going to be good for you?
Okay, so how do you know what's going to be best for you? Look at what you're experiencing and understand what is going on with you. You don't have to have, medical understanding as a medical doctor would, but basics understanding. I think this is the part where everybody can become a self-healer, because you don't need a diagnosis in essential to know that if you keep getting colds, for example, or a flu, you don't need to have the diagnosis or get tested. You know that your immune system is low. And so if you just improve your immune system, you should be able to keep off those colds and flus, right? So look at what the symptom is saying. If you're having heavy periods, if you're having clotting, it means that your uterine lining is not toned, it's not strong. If you have miscarriages, it means that there's no tone and strength to your uterine lining. So then you look towards herbs that help to tone and strengthen the uterine lining. If you have dark colored blood, say like really dark brownish, or if you're having light pink colored blood during a period, then you know that there's poor circulation going on in your uterus. So you look to more uterine stimulant herbs that help to improve circulation in your womb. If there is growth in your uterus or in your ovaries, you're going to look towards tonics, because tonics help to tone and kill off things that are not normal to your body. Your body's very intelligent. It'll know what tissues to kill off and what not to kill off. It's very intelligent in that. Trust it. And if you have, what else? I can't think of anything else, but look at what the symptoms are saying, and then you'll be guided in towards what herbs you might need to use.
Okay. And I think it's also very important what you touched on about having a journal of actually keep track that, okay, you've been drinking the tea or the herbs, or you've been yoni steaming for maybe a week or two. Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? Just really keep in touch with your body. I think that's the most important thing with all these tools that Wanga has shared, is that it's all about keep track if it is working for you and how it is working for you. I'm just going to open it up to questions before we round off. Anybody that wants to ask anything or add anything that we might, oh, can we please, before we have to, can we please talk about the rites of passage? Thank you so much for sharing your story about that. And I think it's so important how,
Oops,
are you there?
I lost you for a second.
Oh, did you lose me for a second? Okay, am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was just saying, thank you so much for sharing your experience on the rites of passage. And I think it was also touched on in the Divine Masculine session with Geb that we had last month, just about how important rites of passage are for men and women, and how we have missed out from that. And it shows in the diseases that we now have and that we are experiencing. And being aware of speaking to elders about what needs to be done and then start working backwards in doing that is also a huge component in finding alignment and realigning yourself. You know, even if you are 35, 25, 45, you know, there's still work that you can
Never too
do.
late.
Yeah, there's still work that you can do and get yourself aligned for yourself, for your children, and also for your community, because I think we also must move away from this isolation that I'm healing myself alone, but we are actually healing everybody around us, because once you are healing and have this information, you're going to talk to someone, even if it's at the Pick and Pay aisle. The conversations happen any and everywhere. So don't discount what you are going through. It's very important. And okay, is there any, okay, we just have a comment from Diti saying, thank you for such a great timely presentation, much appreciated. Thank you. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
I think while we're waiting for questions, it is really important why women need to learn. And what you're saying about communities, this is why I'm so passionate and really driven to teach women. You know, I feel bad sometimes because some men will get in contact with me like, oh, I'm having problems. It's like, I can give you some advice and show you where to go, but I really can't work one-on-one with you. I hope, because my mission, and this is where I feel I've been guided to go and help women, because the moment you teach one woman, you have taught a generation, you have taught a family, you have taught a community, because we're the ones who kind of, you know, hold everything together. I see it so much in some of the groups that I interact with, that there is some groups where it's male dominated, right? And when I asked the question, I said, okay, so you have families. Do you implement these things with your families? And most of them are like, oh no, it's just me. But where there is more women, you find that over time, maybe the partner, the husband, now everybody's eating better. Everybody now knows to go for the natural remedies. Everybody, you know, and then it starts to go from the family to the community. And then this is how we heal nations. So women need to be in the forefront of this. We need to take back our rightful place as the wisdom keepers, the healers, the keepers of knowledge, and just forge the way.
No.
This is how we will heal. And this
No.
is how we'll change care for us.
And I think that having these conversations, having people like you doing such amazing work and so thorough in the work that you do, that it's not just about buy a product from me, it's actually lifelong tools of how to heal yourself and everybody that you know is so important. So thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
It's so appreciated. It's so heartfelt.
It's my pleasure.
And okay, so I don't think we have any questions. So we are just going to wrap it up and just want to get last thoughts from you, last advice. Where can people get a hold of you? You know, we just want to hear it all.
Trust your body. What you feel is not in your head. What you're experiencing is not in your head, and trust your instinct. It would never lead you astray. Your instinct is what keeps you alive at times. So trust it and just learn to trust your body again. Learn to understand and become more self-aware about everything, from how your thought patterns to how you interact with people, how you may feel about certain situations, maybe how you feel towards kids. Why maybe do you gravitate towards kids? Or why do you have a dislike for kids? You know, things like that, that you feel are, people may say this is weird about me. Start to follow those things, follow those little paths, and you never know where your healing can unfold. So start to trust that. And yeah, I think that's the main thing. Trust your body. You live in it. No one else beyond you lives in it. So it will tell you exactly what you need to know.
Okay. And where can people find you?
You can find me on the website, womanwellness.com, woman with a B, so WOMBMAN wellness.com. And that's where you can book a consultation or book a free wellness chat, which is kind of what we did here. So just kind of giving you guidance of where you may need to look, what doctor you may need to see, any testing or anything that I would recommend for you, just to give you a good start to your healing journey. That's where all my health products for women are as well. Coaching, I do one-on-one as well. So that's everywhere, everything that I do, you will find it there. And there's also my number there, so you can always reach me on WhatsApp. And yeah.
Okay. And your wonderful Instagram page, and you also got Facebook.
Instagram and YouTube now. I've just started building the YouTube channel. I have a podcast that I did for 2 seasons as well, which is on hold. So I built the YouTube first. So there's lots of that. And podcast, actually, you would probably really like that. For those who had questions about herbs and healing and where to start, season 1 was all about understanding the assaults that we experience in our bodies for hormone imbalance, and then all the detail you need to know about how to eat for your period, how to eat for your menstrual cycle, how to optimize your health and just have a great experience with that. And then season 2 is all about natural fertility, everything you need to know about natural fertility. Conceiving with fibroids, conceiving with endometriosis, how to eat for fertility as well. So everything is there. So podcast would probably be also a really good place for you to see, which is also on the website.
Okay. And the podcast, is it available on, is it Spotify, iTunes? So, which platform?
Yes, Spotify, iTunes, Anchor. There's quite a few platforms. So what you do, if you go to the website and go to the podcast page, I've put in links for all the platforms that are available.
Okay, awesome. Yes, the podcast is amazing. I've listened to season 1 and 2, and there was so much knowledge. And that's actually what I appreciate about you, Wanga, is that you are able to give so much knowledge to people that they can actually take that and start working on themselves and not feel that it's so much bigger than what it is, because it can be an isolating journey, but you make it comforting, and there's a lot of resources that you put together. So everybody head over to the website where you'll get all the links to the podcast, to the YouTube, which is also quite detailed, and her Instagram. She's very interactive on Instagram. So I want to plug your Instagram because I really like it, because I really like how interactive you are. And there's also affirmations, which is also very key. You didn't really touch on much about that. Also, it's really good to affirm yourself in terms of this healing journey, because there will be times where you feel like you're going backwards, but you're not. It's part of the healing.
And I think if I can quickly add on the self-affirmations, because I think this is important. When it comes to trauma healing, those self-affirmations, this is where you rewire that genetic code that you don't trust yourself, that you're scared, that you're fearful, that you're sick. Self-affirmations is not just saying those things out loud, like, I am well, I am fertile, but you're literally rewiring your brain to see a new reality. So this is how you can what's the word? English. Rewire
Re-engineer.
re-engineer your cell memory. This is one of those ways, self-affirmations. It's become, a trend and everyone just thinks, oh, I just said, but it is hardcore science and it is necessary to deal with trauma and deal with any health issues that you do.
Okay. I just want to go to messages from our audience. Lindy says, Wanga, thank you. You are amazing.
Oh,
We
thank
also
you.
have Menzi says, it's so powerful. Wanga is such a significant voice and a pivotal healer right now.
Oh,
I am so
thank
grateful
you.
right now as a man, a partner, a son, and a father, which
Thank you.
thank you so much for those words, Kulumenzi, because it's also so important that we are not healing in isolation. Yes, last month was about Geb and the masculine, and this month is about the feminine, but we need to heal together so that we are a stronger unit as a family and that we are strong in our communities. So it is very important that men also please listen to these
Yes.
listen to these conversations, because you might hear one time your partner will say something and you'll be like, oh no, but I was listening to, like, Ikambi had a conversation with Wanga and they were saying actually do this, do that. So this is not to exclude you in any manner, because we also need you and we also need you to also give us information where we can't and we are feeling overwhelmed
Yes.
with the
It's
healing or the
definitely.
pain. Yes, so definitely like
It's
that. This
definitely
is for
important
everyone.
for women to also involve their partners and even educate their brothers and, immediate family members of, or not just immediate, but the male people in their lives, to educate them about their health. I have women who were referred to me by actually their husbands, right? Because they're so involved and they've been involved in what the healing process of their bodies. It was my now husband, who was then my boyfriend, who actually said, I think you have PCOS. So I've had a lot of conditions. I don't know if it was by design, so I'm able to empathize with every woman that comes my way, but I've had almost anything you can think of. But I hope that's it. But it was actually he who said, we're going to the gynecologist and I need them to just have this checked for you. This is so important because it's also, you need to heal together, especially if there's a partnership. I think it goes a long way in having that support system with somebody who can understand, or at least just hold you when you're feeling hopeless and lonely or anything of that nature. So it's very important, definitely.
No, I love that. And I love that. And it's so important that there is getting that partnership and getting that advice and that comfort from your partner is so important. So we definitely think that is amazing. And well, shout out to your husband too for that. Hey, that was amazing. Shout out to him.
The nurses would actually laugh like, we am Tanda. Like, he's the forefront of everything. We know him whenever, if I have to, because I still have to have checkups for some things that, a lot of physical trauma that I experience, I still have to have checkups. And then like, if I go to the hospital, my husband's like, where is he? We know he's the first one to walk in here when he comes.
No, it's very important because
It's
we
very-
always feel, because also I think that's where also the trauma can build or decrease. If you keep on constantly feeling something is wrong with me, something is wrong with me, something is wrong with me, and you're also met with the partner that keeps on telling you, but it should be easy. Having a baby should be easy. Getting a period should be easy. But we need to also make sure that we're getting affirming, we're getting comforting words and information from our partners and also from our families. You can't keep on saying things like, oh no, but like siyazala, but there's something that I'm going through and that I need help with. So it's very important as a family, listen to this as in a relationship, and let's just be kind with each other, very much being kind and not rush the process, rather do it well, rather heal, rather take that 9 months instead of being pregnant to actually be working and strengthening your womb. I mean, Wanga has spoken about uterine fatigue. So there's so many things that we can actually start working now, start working to strengthen your body and your womb for the next phase of your life. And so important. Okay, we've got some, okay, so we've Mkhulumenzi has actually asked if we can write down the links on where to find Wanga. So what we'll
Okay.
do, we'll actually share that on the social media. So after the session, I'll share on the poster and I'll tag her. And I will also, we'll have clickable links where people can find you in terms of your website, your YouTube, and Instagram. So we will share those out and you'll be able to find her and engage furthermore with her. And
Thank
then we
you.
have a comment from Lindy where, oh, it can be such a great host. Thank you, thank you. And we also have from Nelly Nkosi. Thank you, beloveds. Thank you so much for joining on this beautiful Sunday, for actually taking the time out to engage and to actually be here with us. And thank you, Wanga, for taking the time to actually just enrich our minds. This has been beautiful.
It has been a pleasure.
I feel that we have covered so much and there's still so much more to cover. So we'll probably be seeing you soon sometime. But
I literally covered half my notes.
so we need the rest. We want all the information. We want the rest of the notes.
We'll figure out a time for another one, definitely. It's
But
been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
But thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of our attendees on the Zoom. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for your questions. Your support is greatly appreciated across all the work that we do. We cannot do what we do without this wonderful and loving community that we have. So we definitely appreciate you all. Thank you. And you can catch this on our YouTube page, which is Ikambi Natural Healing. We're also going to share all the links on our Instagram page, which is Ikambi Natural Healing. We will also be sharing this on our Facebook page. So we want to get the message out. Please engage, please share, please like, please subscribe to our YouTube, because it's through all of that engagement that we're able to carry on with the work, and we can let the algorithm know that to keep us in the forefront of sharing this message. So thank you so much, beloveds, and may you all have a beautiful Sunday. Have rest, be gentle with yourself. Healing starts with yourself. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.